Greetings, fellow moviegoers, and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CCS, and this is my pet gorilla, George. Let me remind you of the success that was Superman the movie. Released in 1978, smack dab in the middle of a period where people got put back into the movies again after the likes of Jaws and Star Wars, Superman the movie was really the first major comic book movie. As you can imagine, fans of the comic enjoyed it, and newcomers seemed happy with it. The movie did make $300 million at the box office, big for back then, but adjusted for inflation it made $500 million, which is pretty decent by today's standards. With that success, a sequel needed to be done. However, due to some drama behind the scenes, which I will touch upon in the next episode, we got a movie much different than intended. Critics and audiences got a kick out of it, yet box office numbers were nearly cut in half. But it still did pretty well, earning nearly $200 million back then, which is still pretty decent. It did come out the same year as The Empire Strikes Back, so I guess that didn't help. But critics and audiences praising it and box office numbers don't give me the opinion I have to share with you. The movie on its own does. So, how was Superman's second cinematic outing? It's time to find out. This is Superman 2. Taking place sometime after the first film, Superman, played again by Christopher Reeve, is still the popular hero from the first film, saving citizens and being mooched over by Lois Lane, played again by Margaret Kidder. However, when he hurls a nuclear weapon into space, he accidentally frees 3 prisoners of Krypton. Ursa, played by Sarah Douglas, Non, played by Jack O'Halloran, and their leader, General Zod, played by Terrence Stamp. The refugees set out to take over Earth as revenge, obviously getting attention from Lex Luthor, played again by Gene Hackman. Will Superman be able to stop them, or will he kneel before Zod? So unlike the first movie, I was able to string together a cohesive plot. Yes, it's incredibly basic, but I found a lot to like about it. It has elements of darkness sprinkled throughout, and overall it makes a bit more sense. That being said, however, it does retain a lot of the goofiness found in the original movie, so if you weren't too keen on it like I was, then you're in for a rude awakening. But the other aspects of the movie, are they good or eh? Well, let's find out. Like the first movie, Christopher Reeve did an incredible job playing Superman. As Clark Kent, he's nerdy and socially awkward, and as Superman, he's kind and down to earth and aggressive when the plot needs him to be. Like I said in my review for the first movie, #shameless plug, I downright loved Christopher Reeve's portrayal of the character, and I gave his performance a 10 out of 10 there. Here, that hasn't changed, as I still ended up giving his performance a 10 out of 10. But also, like the first movie, the other characters aren't too great. Lois, I feel, has only gotten worse. Why? Because she's still an idiot. Come on, girl. Why the hell did you willingly, emphasis on willingly, jump into the water with high current? You knew Clark wasn't going to change into Superman because he was keeping the obscurity train rolling, so why risk your life? You freaking idiots! Oh yeah, and let's not forget that the adventure they went on made her super stressed out to be with Clark. So she gets an amnesia kiss from him. An amnesia kiss. Why? Just why? If you thought the ending from the first movie was a cop-out, this is even worse. It's out of nowhere, and it makes no freaking sense. As a matter of fact, none of the Kryptonian powers in this movie make freaking sense. These are not from the comics. This is red kryptonite level bullcrap, not the main powers. To its credit, at least the farthest the 60s Batman show went was making him dance and go out during the day, but I digress. Lois was good at the time, but like I said before, it's time for a change. Perry White and Jimmy Olsen have little to nothing to do in this movie, so I just won't talk about them. Ma and Pa Kent aren't even present, but I didn't even take time to notice it. But now we have the villains. Ursa and Non are actually pretty cool. Non is not amazing per se because he's just so goofy, but he grew on me. Ursa was pretty somewhat, yeah, but intimidating. But these don't compare to the greatness that is Terrence Stamp as General Zod. Holy Christ, this guy is cool. While there are some goofy moments, he is downright scary in a lot of scenes, and the voice he puts on is amazing. His plan on taking over the world is also believable and not even stupid, even. So, hell yeah, General Zod is a really good villain. But I have one major problem with him, and that problem is Lex Luthor. Remember how I said Lex was dumbed down by Otis and Miss Tessmacher in the first movie? Well, Lex does the very thing that those two did for Zod. I'm not kidding. As a matter of fact, we have pretty much the same character we did in the original, just 100 times stupider. This time, instead of blowing up California, he wants to rule Australia. Who wrote this movie again? Mario Puzo? You're telling me that the man who wrote The Godfather, a drama about the mob, wrote this kind of villain? Give me a break. So yeah, Lex Luthor was a decent villain in the last movie, but I downright hated that he was in this movie. No offense to Gene Hackman, did a good job with what he was given, but my god, just keep this version of Lex as far away from me as humanly possible. So overall, much like the first movie, Superman is the best character, with the villain being a close second. Only if he wasn't dumbed down. So yeah, I'm not too much of a sucker for the characters again, but like the first movie, the effects hold up pretty well. The flying still looks cool, even though the blurry effects around the characters still make it a problem. And the powers from the Kryptonians look pretty cool as well. I mean, sure, they could be better powers, but they look nice, admittedly. Also, I need to point this out. The final shot is the same as the original movie with just darker color grading. Seriously, guys? You really think we weren't going to notice that? You had the budget. You could have made a new ending shot. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The music this time around was not done by John Williams, to my surprise, but rather by British composer Ken Thorne, whom I haven't heard of at all until this point. He composed a score very similar in vein to John Williams' original, with the original theme still being the highlight. But I have to say that the Superman and Lois music was really well done as well. So I can't complain too much. And as for the action scenes, well, we really have five, and the judgment on them comes down to current comic book movie action scenes. I mean, they're alright. I like the opening scene with Superman catching an elevator on the Eiffel Tower, and when he saves the kid from the Niagara Falls. The highlight of the action scenes to me comes from the scenes with Zod, including his moments in space and the scene where he and his cronies obliterate Houston. The Battle of Metropolis was good too, and I like seeing the individual powers. But do we really need the citizens to join in and try and fight? That was kind of forced, and I feel like that whole idea wouldn't be nailed until 2002 with Sam Raimi's Spider Man. Also, the wind blowing moment went on for way too long. It nearly bored me to tears. And the finale in The Fortress of Solitude was just so stupid. Seriously, we're going to ignore the fact that Superman and Lois murdered Zod and his cronies? They're dead. We don't see them come back. They're gone. And these two killed them. Holy Christ. What a cheap and very anticlimactic and ruthless way to end a movie. That's a first for me, and I've seen the endings to Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, and Casino Royale, which also had somewhat ruthless action scenes in the last 10 to 15 minutes. So yeah, what did I think of Superman 2? Well, I definitely had a good time watching it, and I'd say it's the better movie between this and the original. But the problems I have really stick out to me, and I can't ignore them. So I give it the only real final score I can. The movie gets a 7 out of 10. Thankfully, there is one last redeeming chance for these two movies, and that is another version of Superman 2. One that may solve the problems I have with these first two. I'm a little nervous to cover it next week, but you're going to hear what I have to say about the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 next week. With that said, my name is Mr. CCS, this is Movie Central, and that My friends, is a wrap. See you next week.